Mike, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Mike. Honor to be here.
Great. Yeah. Really interested to get into all of the things that you've been doing with Find My Profession and all of those things, how you're helping people, get into great jobs and find the work that they kind of have a calling for. But I also love to talk about people's career arcs. I'm fascinated with the career stories. So I'm just going to open it up to talk to you about and ask you the first question, which is, when you were in college and you were kind of preparing for a career, what did you think you would be doing for a living at this point in your life?
Yeah, so I had wanted to be a stockbroker a few years before getting into college, and then all the way through college until my senior year. I had just witnessed a family friend who was a stockbroker. He seemed to have a nice lifestyle, got to spend time with his family and kids, and did pretty well financially. So that was always what I thought I wanted to do. Yeah.
Okay, and that's clearly not what you're doing today. So how did things unfold after college?
Yeah, so my senior year, we were required to do an internship for our field of study. So I did a little internship at a financial kind of consulting firm that did, basically stockbroking, insurance, and things like that. After doing that, I really just decided it wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy it too much. And I also didn't really care to go back to school, essentially, and pass a whole bunch of exams after graduating to get licensed for that. I had a lot of experience in sales throughout college and thought, I really enjoy a position where I can work harder to make more money versus just being kind of capped in a role and having to spend, X number of years to get to that next level. So sales is what I ultimately decided to go into after college. And that's what led me to recruiting.
Okay. I guess I have kind of like a idea of like stockbrokers as being somewhat salespeople. So what was there anything in particular about the difference that I should know about or think about, that affected your decision?
Yeah, so there was quite a bit more schooling that went into it after that I just wasn't super interested in doing. But also it was not really exciting for me to be selling insurance and things of that nature. So while I feel like I could have done well and lived a successful life, it just going out and having meetings on the golf course and things like that wasn't really what I was looking for. And I realized that pretty much after I was done getting my finance degree. So I just decided to go through with it, finish it, get that degree, and then go out and pursue something that I'd be a little more passionate about.
Okay. So yeah, drawn to the sales as an industry, but you kind of had the need to have a passion and an interest in what you were selling, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Never. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Never been a big suit and tie guy either. So, a job where I'd have to dress up in a suit and tie every day was not for me. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Me either. Luckily, I can, kind of wear a sweatshirt every day and a hat. I'm a big hat guy for some reason. So I'm always you'll almost always find me wearing a hat. So I'm right there with you. All right. So your sales career kind of led you into this, the staffing world, really, right? Can you talk about how you got involved in staffing and maybe what your first experiences were kind of like there?
Yeah, sure. I was recruited in college my senior year for a staffing role. I had a couple opportunities locally, but I really wanted to get out of Fresno, California. If you're familiar with it, you'd know why I wanted to get out. But they call it the armpit of California for a reason. It gets like 115 degrees in the summer and it's just brutal. So I was excited to get out and start kind of a new journey somewhere else. I had this role where a recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn to work as a recruiter in the Bay Area. I thought that was pretty exciting, moving to a bigger city in California where there's more opportunity. So that's really what led me to my first recruiting job in San Jose. That did not last long. I quickly realized that was not something that I was interested in either. My employer, I will not mention the name, but was not the most ethical company around it. They were very focused on, high volume recruiting, no quality, just quantity. There's the highest turnover rate that I've ever seen at a company there. I mean, every single month, if not multiple times a month, somebody was quitting and then somebody else was being hired. So I was one of those people as well. Only lasted there about 3 months before wanting to go out and try to do something on my own in the same space, a little better than they were doing.
Okay, so how did that, I guess, maybe differ from other recruiting and staffing models? Like I've talked to other recruiters who seem to have a much more sort of approach, that's actually helpful. But I think your experience was really one that it was all about the sales goals. People kind of were really skipping over the human element of the job seeker in the whole deal. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, our hiring manager wasn't too concerned about us building relationships with the job seekers that we were working with. A lot of recruiting agencies will kind of implement an aspect of coaching as well, where they're kind of coaching their job seeker clients, or not really clients, but coaching the job seekers to help position them better for interviews, things like that. Our manager did not want us really interacting with the job seekers at all, besides getting information to see if they qualify and then sending it over to the hiring manager. We were pretty much just told to kind of neglect it or not really care for any of the job seekers, and to put all of our focus and attention on the hiring companies and the hiring managers, which, to some extent that makes sense. They're the ones who are paying the bills and keeping the lights on. But I just realized that wasn't for me. When I got into recruiting, I thought it would be more of a, focus on helping job seekers get jobs. And that really wasn't the focus at all. And I wanted to go do that elsewhere. So.
Okay. So kind of a desire to really service the people who are kind of in need the most, the people that are looking for the job, led you to really not only leave that position after a short stint, but you found your passion, at least in that industry, in terms of wanting to help people. And the next step for you was basically what?
Yeah, I did. I saw a huge need when I was working there. We talked to, probably 100 people a day, making phone calls to see if somebody's a fit. And maybe one out of those 100 would be somebody that we'd pass along to the hiring manager. And I always wondered, what is happening to the other 99 out of 100 that we're essentially ignoring and neglecting? Where are they going? How are they getting help? And it wasn't until I started really job searching myself, when I was unhappy with the recruiting job, that I realized, wow, job searching is difficult. I remember getting off work after 10-hour work days plus an hour commute each way. Really didn't have a lot of time to be job searching. So I remember sitting on my computer and Googling, can I just pay somebody to find me a job, or can I hire a company that will find me a job? And I couldn't find anything out there on the internet. I mean, I literally would have walked into Google's front door and said, here's a $10,000 check, hire me. I'll pay you to hire me. And that wasn't an option. There's nothing like that. Nobody was willing to take my money to help me get a job. And I really didn't have time with this full-time job to job search on my own effectively. So with the combined experience of recruiting and wanting to help the job seekers, and then also being a job seeker and realizing there really isn't a lot of help out there for job seekers, that's what led to the inspiration for Find My Profession and our fully managed job search service, where we pretty much manage the job search for our clients.
Okay, so that was kind of like the key insight, right? Like you yourself, you're kind of scratching your own itch. Like you had this need to, it is a full-time job. Finding a job is a full-time job. And you said, hey, like I would love to do this and pay money for it, and it just doesn't seem to exist. So that's kind of like, oh, the light bulb went off in Mike's head as to maybe there's a better way to do this, and I don't find it in the marketplace. So I'm going to go try to build that on my own, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think they say like a lot of, or most businesses come out of some need that somebody had, and then it sparks that creativity. That was absolutely the case here with me. It was me having to choose what I wanted to sacrifice to be able to job search after work. So was I not cooking dinner that night and eating out, or was I not going to the gym that night and eating out, or was I job searching? It was very limited time I could do things before I had to get up at 4 a.m. to commute to work the next day. So yeah, there's a service for just about everything out there that you could possibly want. I thought, why is there not a service to help people job search?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I've changed careers, like complete change of career, several times. And I remember being in grad school and working for the graduate department to pay for the school. And also, trying to essentially network with anybody I could, take all sorts of coffee meetings, just learn and find people. To find an opportunity. And at this time, I mean, this was like right during the great financial crisis as well. So there was not that many jobs. I basically had to like network to get a job created for me at Deloitte Consulting. Like that's how hard I went at it. And it was a complete full-time job. So I totally empathize with that. With that problem. Like I've lived that problem, and it makes a lot of sense that, that people would get a lot of value from that. So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And how long did that take you to do all that networking and stuff on your own?
Yeah. So, let me think. So it's like start to finish, I did my MBA program at kind of an accelerated pace. I did about a year and a quarter, where normally it's kind of a 2-year process. And I was a full-time working student. And so I would say like I started right away. And I wasn't going to take a job until I was done. So maybe I had a little bit of extra time, but yeah, I mean, it was like a good year process of it. There was some added time because I wasn't laser focused in on what I wanted to do. So I had some time to sort of, the front end of that, I think, was loaded more with exploration than anything else. And then probably, 6 months when I was sort of dialed into what I wanted to do. So yeah, I mean, it was long and I had schoolwork on top of it and everything, there wasn't a whole lot else going on in my life at the time for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's quite time consuming. And when you have to choose between other things, 6 months of, not cooking dinner every night to job search, or not going to the gym or something like that is, quite a long time to be having to sacrifice other things for a job search. So.
Yeah. So I can see the problem, like the burning problem there. So now I want to kind of talk to you about like that transition, because a lot of our audience is listening and thinking about doing something different, and maybe they're not quite sure exactly how to do that or take the next step. So I kind of want to hone in a little bit on like the steps you took. So you got the idea, you don't like your employer, you need to make a change. What was like maybe the first few weeks or few months of that transition? Like, what were you doing? What was the first step you took?
Yeah. So I'm not like a multiple business starter entrepreneur. This was my first business. So I was not ready to just, have the idea as a concept and then just make the leap and quit my job right away. I know I've heard a couple of your other, episodes, and you don't necessarily recommend that either for most people. So I didn't. I decided to continue working. I did leave the recruiting job, ended up getting a software sales job, moved to San Francisco, super high rent, is paying $1,500 a month to live in a house with 4 other roommates. And, basically eating ramen and frozen pizzas every day. So that I was not ready to quit my job and just pursue this full time. I did it on the side, spend maybe 10 hours a week building the website, just kind of getting proof of concept, throwing some Google ads out there to try to get some clients and see what people thought about the service, just getting feedback at a super low cost while having my full-time job financially support me. It wasn't until probably about a year of doing this on the side that I decided it was time to quit my job and pursue this full-time. To do that, I still couldn't afford to live in San Francisco paying $1,500 a month for rent. I figured out basically what my burn rate would be and how long I'd be able to last, and discovered that I needed to move and have a lower rent and lower cost of living to be able to pursue this full time. So I ended up moving to a much more affordable city, reduced my rent to $400 from $1,500, and also, had roommates and was toughing it out like that. So that's kind of how it started.
So I got a couple of follow-up questions in there. So first, I wanted to point out, like, you were in a tough employment situation, and you didn't go straight to starting your little baby. You got in a better situation. You got a job, right? You got a job that it was a better situation, and you essentially, you're in your mind. Find My Profession is in your mind, and you're thinking of how you can get more feedback, hone in on the business model, and kind of seek more validation for that, really as a side hustle, right? I mean, it kind of starts as a side project, it seems. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. It was, you never know what's going to come of something, but if you're, like in my case, was just interested in starting something, kind of being an entrepreneur, having my own journey with that, and wanted to see what would happen. So yeah, definitely was a side hustle. Really originally did not think I would be leaving software sales, which was kind of my dream job, all for the last few years. So, but yeah, it ended up happening like that.
Okay. And then what was maybe like the key insight or the switch that flipped for when you kind of said, yeah, I should do this full time, or I need to do this full time? Like, what did you see that helped you get the confidence to make that leap then?
Yeah, so I saw we were starting to get some interest, some customers organically coming to us, and I found myself having to try to answer phone calls during, business hours is when people would be calling for the business. But I was also working a full-time job then. I knew my employer wouldn't love that too much. I didn't have a super great flexible job at the time. It was very much a in office, 10 hours a day, long hours, job. If it would have been a nice, flexible, part-time career, I probably could have managed both for longer, but there's really no way I could just continue a 60-hour work week, be getting calls for my business and then not answering them, and essentially neglecting my little baby for my full-time job. It was just never going to go any further, it seemed like, if I didn't allocate some more time for it. So.
Okay. So you kind of reached a point where you had a constraint, which is essentially time and also and attention to your full-time job. It wasn't as flexible as you maybe needed it to be. And so it sort of forced the decision. How did you manage, I guess, the risk then of going forward with your pursuing your business full-time then? Because you obviously would drop income, right? How did you manage that little situation?
Yeah, I went from a 90,000 base salary with lots of commission on top of that to probably making closer to 20 grand a year my first year of starting Find My Profession. So that required a huge decrease in expenses, right? So went from a $1,500 a month house to a $400 a month apartment. Actually went and stayed at my parents' house for 3 months prior to moving into that apartment. Remember calling my dad on my last day of work and saying, hey, I know I just got this job and it's like a great job and like everything I've been working towards, but I think I want to quit and do my business full time. And I thought he was going to say, you're stupid, don't do that. But he was totally supportive. He said, hey, if that's what you think is best, I support it, go for it. He was like, if you need to come stay here for a couple months till you get on your feet, you can. I took him up on that, ended up moving back, which is not something a recent college grad wants to do, is go back and live with their parents after being out for the last 6 years. But it was super helpful, and it was what I needed to do to move forward. And yeah, that's kind of what I had to do.
Yeah. So just chopping expenses and getting your personal kind of finances in order. Did you do anything else supplement income, or was all that income from the business, from Find My Profession to start?
Yeah, no. So I had a little bit saved, maybe like $5,000, probably within the first month of really doing Find My Profession full time. I decided, okay, we need a website that looks good. I had built the previous website on my spare time, and I am in no way a software developer, so it was pretty terrible. Ended up going on Upwork to find some freelancers and found a team out of Ukraine that was going to charge $15,000 to build this, dream website of mine. Considering I had five and was maybe making 1,000 to 2,000 a month from Find My Profession, I needed to come up with 10 grand in basically it was 1.5 months that they were going to be done with the project, and I was having to pay incrementally throughout. So to supplement and try to get that income, I went on Upwork myself and started freelance blog writing. I was charging $25 an hour, which was a lot less than I was making before, but it did give me that freedom and flexibility to still be able to focus on Find My Profession during business hours when people were calling, and I could write blogs at night, early in the morning, and make what I needed to make. And if you do the math on basically $20 an hour after the Upwork fees to get to $10,000 in a month and a half, I was easily working 60 to 100-hour weeks for the first few months of starting the business. So.
Wow, so that's so interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize you used freelancing kind of to supplement. So where did the writing come from? Because obviously software sales, a lot of times I talk to people and I say, hey, if you want to start a business, like the easiest way to start is do whatever your job pays you to do, right? Yeah. Go get one more client. Now you're a freelancer, but like you kind of went from sales to writing. How did you discover you had a skill for writing?
Yeah. So the funny thing is I absolutely hate writing blogs and articles and just writing in general. I really, it was a means to an end, but I've always been a good writer. I just never liked it. I got a 4 on my AP English test in high school, didn't have to take English in college because I tested out of it, and was always good at writing. I noticed on Upwork, there really was just a need for administrative people, which most people in the US were hiring people in other countries for those sorts of things, or software development, which there's no way I was going to learn that or be able to do that, and writing. There's still a lot of outsourced writing, but a lot of people were looking for US writers and would pay a decent amount because typically the writing quality was a little higher. So ended up just thinking, okay, this is probably the one thing on Upwork that I could make money on, also have the time flexibility. Even a lot of administrative stuff you have to be on during that person's business hours to do work for them. I just liked that writing seemed to be one of the few options that I could do whenever I wanted, could make enough doing. Despite hating it, I knew this was not what I was going to do forever. So it was fine to just suck it up and deal with it for a couple months.
What was your area of expertise? Writing?
For writing. So I wrote blogs. My biggest client was actually an online head shop. So they had me writing reviews on different, basically pipes and bongs and things like that, which is not my forte, but it was it's pretty funny work. The guys were really cool that ran the shop and super friendly and paid me well and liked what I did. The other biggest client was a staffing firm out of Florida. So wrote a lot of recruiting and HR blogs, as well as blogs for an online head shop.
Fascinating. Okay, that's amazing. You had to bridge the gap a few times, in these transition areas, and you got creative doing it. I love that. And did you freelance just to pay for that website, or did you continue to do it to supplement your income, until maybe Find My Profession was doing well enough to take that all over? Or did you feel like your expenses were low enough where it just didn't matter?
Yeah, I kept my expenses low enough where really the only reason I needed to freelance was to support the growth that we were trying to do, which was updating the website. Everything else I was doing on my own from there, all the marketing, working with the clients. I was fine doing that and just not making a lot. So I stayed in that apartment at the $400 a month for like a year and a half, even though only about the first 3 months of it was freelancing. So I kept my expenses super low. Eventually, the expenses, the money from the business far outweighed the expenses, but I still kept them very low for a while just to be safe and plan for any additional growth or development that needed to happen.
Got it. Okay. And what time period was this? This was approximately what year?
So this would have been early 2016 where all this was wrapping up.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Awesome, man. I love that story. I love these career transition stories and how people do it and how people execute it. It's fantastic. It gets me pumped. So we've been talking a lot. We've been mentioning Find My Profession. We've been talking about your story, but I want to get into that right now. I want our audience to understand what you do, because you obviously have a passion for this space. You started it from scratch. You saw a need. What do you guys actually do? How do you stand out? I want to get into all of this stuff.
Yeah, so Find My Profession was originally founded just focusing on our what we now call reverse recruiting services. So it's our fully managed job search. We mentioned that I saw the need earlier on where somebody could just hire somebody to find a job for them fully. There's a lot of resume writers and career coaches out there, which are great resources, but they don't do everything for you. You're not going to make it where you don't have to come home after a 60-hour work week and still do work on your computer once you have that resume. There's still a lot of work involved. I wanted something that was start to end a full service for job seekers to literally outsource their job search. So our Career Finder service has just grown and evolved into what it is today, but we will search for jobs for our clients. We present to them these jobs every Friday, new jobs added into their profile. They either approve or reject the jobs that we've added for them. On Monday, we apply to all the jobs that they've approved. We use a customized version of their resume tailored towards the job for every job that we apply to for them. And then Tuesday through Thursday, we network on their behalf. So we're literally going into their LinkedIn profile and an email account that is theirs and sending messages to hiring managers, recruiters, and peers for the roles that they're interested in on their behalf to set up interviews. And then once we land them interviews, we coach them through how to be successful in that.
Got it. So very comprehensive white glove type service. And I love what you call it reverse recruiting, right? Why is it called reverse recruiting?
So I always wanted to do the exact opposite of what I did as a recruiter. So it just seemed right. So when I worked as a recruiter, we were very focused on the hiring companies and hiring managers and filling positions for them. We were 100% meant to focus on them and their needs and helping fill that for the companies. But there's nothing out there that was 100% focused on the job seeker and their needs and helping them land a new position. I wanted to do the exact opposite of what I was taught to do in my recruiting role. And that was give all the attention to the job seeker, not the hiring company. So we call it reverse recruiting because it's essentially the opposite of what recruiters are paid to do.
I love that. That's fantastic. Who would you say is who is this primarily for? Like, what is the archetype of a person that uses your service?
Yeah, so we have worked with just about anybody. I mean, we've worked with recent college graduates whose parents are buying this as a gift for them. And we've worked with 7-figure executives looking for very high C-level positions. So we can work with just about anybody, considering the cost of the service, close to $2,500 a month. It is somewhat of an inhibitor for those making under 60 grand a year or so, but we are capable of working with anybody and we are extremely successful working with anybody. The cost would be the only limiting factor for people.
Yeah, and so I mean, what's unique is this is funded by the job seeker as opposed to the job posters or the employers, right? And you don't take any money from an employer, as I understand it, right?
Yeah, so we found that if we're trying to pitch our clients to employers and then charge a fee, we're not really having the best interest of the job seeker. The company is less likely to look at our clients if they think that they have to pay some huge 30% of the salary placement fee attached to it. So we send all of our clients over as free referrals to hiring companies to better position them for success and be more likely to land them interviews. So yeah, unfortunately, in order to be 100% focused on the job seeker, their wants, needs, and desires, and have no bias towards pushing them towards any companies or anything like that, we do need to be compensated by the job seeker to be fully vested in them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I mean, I'm assuming in the industry, you get a little pushback because most of the model of recruiting is employer funded essentially. But you were telling me some of the stories when we talked the other day about the letters that you get and the thanks that you get from people, because it just felt to me like when a job seeker is paying for this service and getting the value out of it that you guys are providing, you have kind of fans for life and you have like really good reviews. Talk to me a little bit about some of the things that people have said to you in the past.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's gone through a job search knows it can be a pretty emotional process. It's pretty stressful getting far along in an interview and then ultimately finding out that they're going with somebody else and you're the second option can be super depressing for people. It's nice to have somebody who's there with you going through the entire process, helping kind of absorb some of that pain and heartache and just knowing you're not alone out there. So yeah, we've had clients, of course, send us like bottles of champagne, all sorts of things like that, but even been invited to like weddings for clients. I mean, we've been told we've saved marriages that were going downhill because just financial stress in the family from not having a job at the time. I mean, there's so much that we've done for clients, and yeah, once they use our service, they're pretty much ruined for the rest of their life because they see how convenient it is to have us do the work for them. And when another job search comes around, I don't personally know of a single client who's used our service and then conducted another job search and then not used us that second time because they are just like, wow, I can't ever do this again on my own. It was so much better with you guys. So
that's amazing. The fact that you've been invited to weddings and claim to have saved marriages is like you're a marriage counselor. That's unbelievable. I mean, I don't think a lot of services or a lot of recruiting services in the other model probably can say that, as they probably can't say that, right? Like it's very unique. It seems like we talked about your process. We talked about the things that you do for a job seeker, but I'm going to ask, like, what can people expect from you? So they can expect to have all of those jobs done, but in terms of like, just what's the secret sauce in your culture or in how you treat your clients that sets you guys apart?
Yeah, so from the beginning, we've just been designed to cater towards job seekers. There's, like you said, it's not that recruiters are bad people or anything. It's just that they're not compensated by the job seeker to be invested in them and focus on what their wants are. They have another agenda, which is to fill the positions for the hiring companies. So they can't be as focused on the job seeker as we can. That's what we're literally hired and paid to do, not what recruiters are hired or expected to do. So our team members are super qualified. We do pretty much exclusively hire our reverse recruiters from recruiting backgrounds. We do want them to be familiar with the recruiting process, what HR and companies are looking for, but also be in the same situation as I was, where they're thinking, I want to be doing something to help the job seeker more than I want to be doing to help the company. And we get people applying to this job just saying, wow, this is exactly what I've been wanting to do my whole life, but didn't know anything out there existed. So the people that we have working with us and working for our job seeker clients are super motivated to help job seekers directly. That's what their passion is. And we just only hire people for this role that are very passionate about helping job seekers.
Great. Yeah, I mean, my audience on the podcast and in newsletters and in written form on careercloud.com know that I'm a big proponent of investing in ourselves and using money as a tool to leverage our time, solve problems, get things done better. And I do think this is an option for people that they may not have been accustomed to. Like people aren't necessarily used to paying for that type of service, but I do think it falls clearly in that bucket of if you have it and you're able to solve this problem and leverage other people who know how to network better, who understand how to customize resumes, search for jobs better and faster than you. Like this is a great way to use some money to do that and find a really, really top-notch fit job instead of settling and finding another job that maybe, 60% is a good fit instead of 80, 90%. And so I that's why I wanted to have you on and talk about this, because I think it's a great way for people to do that. I want to give you the floor for the next minute or so, like if there's just anything I missed asking you, anything that you want to leave our audience with, it could be, you know, advice for trying to, for somebody trying to figure out their path in life, or just whatever you want to do. I want to just give you the floor and kind of say whatever you want to.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, just to piggyback off what you're saying, like you said, job searching is a skill and it's not something that everybody should just be expected to be a pro at. I'm not a pro at software development, and a software developer is probably not a pro at sales or finance. So each person has their skill set, their profession. Like you're a great podcast host, but I don't know if you're a great cook. Maybe you are. So we don't expect our clients to be great job seekers. I mean, people probably look for a job 3, 4, 5 times in their life. So why invest the time and effort into becoming the most professional job seeker you could possibly be? It's just not something you do frequently enough to develop those skills. We have those skills. This is what we do full time for the past 5, 6 years. So we can, you know, do this so much better than the average job seeker. And it's nobody should be expected to be a professional job seeker when they're only doing it a couple times a year. So we're happy to be those people for our clients and allow them to do what they do best, whether that's finance, sales, or whatever it is. So yeah, that's really it. I don't have too much else to say. I guess just, you know, advice, whether or not you're using our services, you know, well, I guess networking is huge. So whether this is for job searching or just starting something else that you can be more passionate about in life, whether, you know, new career or whatever it is, LinkedIn's a great tool to find people to network with. That's how I got connected with Mike here. You can meet some great people on there that have similar goals and are like-minded individuals that can kind of help guide you through that and give you advice. So just like Mike's show is just such a great resource for people to figure out their passion and their calling and know how to take actionable steps to getting there. There's so much out there like this. So definitely don't be afraid to network and get connected with people and keep learning. So.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think your network is a little bit like a safety net and a launch pad at the same time. When the world's uncertain, people are laid off, people get fired. I've had job changes, right? And I've always fallen back on my network. And so it's not just build it when you need it, it's always be building it so you have it when you need it. And then on the launchpad side, I mean, it's amazing the serendipity that happens from just connecting with people online, building your network. You just never know what doors are going to open when you truly build a network of value. So I would just, that's kind of going to be my last statement. I totally agree with you. Mike, where can people find out more about you on the interwebs or get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. That's pretty much the only social platform that I'm active on. So just search Mike Podesto on LinkedIn. I'm pretty much the only one. Another great place to go is the website, findmyprofession.com. A ton of information on there, tons of free career advice resources. And we have the best customer success team, always available to answer the phone or emails if you have any questions. So highly recommend findmyprofession.com as well.
All right, excellent. We'll have links to all that in the show notes. Mike, great conversation. Really appreciate you being here, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a good day.
All right, you too.